Well, let's get started. Are you good to go, Mark, with this?
Yeah, man, I'm ready, Dan. Thank you.
Well, I would go through your introduction, Mark, but I'm going to probably butcher it. So, what can you just introduce yourself? Give them kind of an overview of who you are and what you are, and then kick off the presentation.
Wonderful. So thank you, Dan, and thanks to ACCG for quarterbacking this, guys, today. I'm honored to be here. My name is Mark Greisiger with a company called Net Diligence, and we are nationally based throughout the U.S. I'm physically in Pennsylvania, got colleagues in Texas, Florida, California, and some other parts. And we've been in business for 16 years, and our whole really focus was cyber risk management, trying to help our clients understand what cyber risk they should be concerned about, how can they mitigate that risk. And we partner up with many organizations, insurance organizations, that offer cyber liability insurance coverage. That's kind of how we deliver our services. Right now, we support about 80 major cyber risk insurance companies, like AIG and Chubb and Zurich and Allianz and many others. So what I wanted to do was talk today with you folks about cyber risk impacting public entities, small towns, counties, etc. It's something we see literally every day, and I'll talk more about that. And if there's any questions, as Dan said, I would love to take your questions, towards the end or even in the middle, Dan, if that makes sense. So you're looking at a screen of an iceberg here, tip of the iceberg. The reason why I'm showing this is you read about some events in the press. You might even have colleagues or even your organization has seen some kind of a cyber risk event, maybe a data breach event or ransomware or something like that. I could tell you that what you're reading about in the paper is just a tiny part of what's actually happening in the undercurrent. Our insurance partners, probably see 10 data breaches every day, most of the insurance companies we work with. I believe there's thousands and thousands that go unreported in the press. And you're also not reading about some of the larger events like that might cause a business interruption for your organization, a denial of service attack. The only reason we're reading about some of the things in the press is because personal information of people was touched. And there's 50 state laws out there that compel an organization to notify those victims of a breach. So we're only reading about some of the cyber risk happening. So I just wanted to, point out that, and it's also something that touches literally every sector out there. It is counties and public entities of all sorts. It's large banks. It's small healthcare. It's telecommunications. It's you name the sector, they're having these issues. So it doesn't discriminate. You're looking at a screen now of a lot of state and federal class action lawsuits that relate to cybersecurity or a privacy breach. The point of this screen is not to actually see the cases. I just wanted you to see the volume. And this is just a smidgen of the lawsuits that are starting to happen now because bad guy accessed your county systems and got it into a treasure trove of citizens' data. Health records, credit card information, tax information, you name it. And now, lo and behold, someone's claiming you had anemic security in place. It wasn't reasonable. And now some bad guy in Latvia has it, and they're using some people's information. Those are the kind of cases that are starting to percolate literally every day. Here's a poor college. Not to point anybody out, but there's a poor college system in Arizona, Maricopa. They already have spent $26 million dealing with a data breach kind of event of student data. And unfortunately, it appears they were capturing student information at the county level and keeping it indefinitely going back decades. And so the bad guy ultimately got into a lot of information, which is driving up their exposure.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
I'm not sure what's going on, but it doesn't seem like a couple people, and I would include myself in this, our screen, we're stuck on the ransomware slide.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Reboot your...
Let me see here. Let's see. Do you see the main screen right now, Dan?
All I see is the ransomware slide.
Show screen.
There you go. Now that's the front. That's the first slide you're on right now.
Okay. I mean, now you see. So no one saw my good iceberg slide right here. Do you see that now?
Now we see the iceberg slide.
All right. Sorry about that. So this is the iceberg slide. Just trying to give you a sense of, convey that a lot of the risk is happening, but we're not actually seeing it. Apologize for that, Dan.
No problem.
This is a slide, everybody, of just a small section of the privacy, security, data breach cases impacting all kind of organizations, large and small. There's a researcher who actually gave me this. He's with the Rand Corp, and he studies the probability of being sued. And he gave me some of these as part of his study. I just wanted to point out, and the point here is not to see the cases, but just to see that we're just starting. I believe it's just getting started. The plaintiff bar is starting to pay attention to this, and there in the little box there is you see the Maricopa colleges who suffered a hacking attack, unfortunately, and they were looking at already $26 million in losses. Okay, now you see the ransomware. Is that correct, Dan?
Yes.
Okay, so ransomware. We wanted to just bring up one slide on ransomware. The reason is, so every year, Net Diligence, we also conduct a claim study with the insurance industry. We collect 1,000 claims for cyber risk, data breaches, ransomware, you name it. These insurance partners of ours give us 1,000 claims, all redacted information, so we don't know who the entity was who suffered a loss or suffered the breach. But it's tremendous for you guys as our clients because we could give you data and reports that show you how real this is, what on average is being paid out, and I'm going to be showing you some of that information shortly, but what's causing these losses? I mean, ransomware over the past 2 years is just running rampant. I feel like 1 in 2, 1 in 3 claims impacting all kind of organizations, large and small, public entities, private sectors, you name it, has some attachment to phishing or ransomware. And lo and behold, a poor staffer clicks on something from some bad guy purporting to be maybe a business partner or a friend that they know, and now your network is encrypted, and all of a sudden you're looking at a screen, oftentimes in Russian, asking you to send, 50 Bitcoins to some account. That is something that the insurance industry is dealing with literally every day, dozens of times. And we have experts who will be talking about at the end of this presentation that assist the thing. But I just want to make you aware it's something that is so common. Some of the things you can do to mitigate is really just train your staff to be on the lookout for suspicious emails. But be honest with you, that only goes so far because we see emails coming out at our policyholders, clients of ours, and it looks literally like it's coming from one of their colleagues. I mean, the bad guys can phish the colleague and masquerade as them and send you emails with malware. So it is something to be aware of, and we don't see it going away anytime soon. And I could tell you this, years ago, the Bitcoins were much cheaper than they are now. Some of these demands are, when you add up all the Bitcoins they're requesting, sometimes it's $100,000, $200,000 to get a decryption key back from the bad guy. Usually a forensic expert guides you through that process, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But one of the problems we also see on occasion is sometimes those decryption keys don't always work. You pay it. Sometimes the bad guy will send you the decryption key. Usually they do. It's amazing how they make good on that. And on occasion, those decryption keys don't actually unlock the data because something happens in between. So I also wanted to just mention briefly employee error. I feel like 1 in 2, 1 in 3 claims it's not always a bad guy breaking into your systems. You saw all those lawsuits a couple slides ago. A lot of that is just innocent mistakes being made. We are in a network-dependent world with a lot of interconnectivity systems. You depend on upstream and downstream. And when someone makes a mistake, it's innocently enough. It could be, sending out Social Security numbers in an email. It can be paper records. We see a lot of attorney generals going after clients because they found sensitive paper records not properly shredded, things like that. that's causing a lot of the lawsuits and losses generally that we're seeing out there. So it's not always about hacker risk, just to point that out. So I mentioned our claim study. This is some preliminary findings of that study. We have the full boat study that's going to be coming out, and it's going to be going into the eRisk Hub portal for ACCG. I'll be mentioning that towards the end of this. That's all the data that we're going to be talking about today is going to be live in about 2 months or so. But right now, I'm just giving you an early glimpse of what our 2018 study is showing. So we looked at 1,200 claims. The average data breach event coming out this past year was $600,000. You see there in parentheses SME size. That's for a small organization. It may not be a public entity like a county, but it could be an organization of similar size. They represented like 90% of the data breach events, unfortunately. If you were a large company, and that was defined by revenue size, their average breach or claim for cyber risk was about $24 million. So a big difference. But $600,000 to your county, I'm sure, is a big hit. And a lot of clients seeing these kind of losses didn't actually have cyber risk insurance coverage yet. And to them, it was life-threatening. So a lot of times risk managers and actuaries, our insurance professionals who we connect with, like to break it down to a per record cost. And it's a little tricky to do that because whenever you use the word average, it can get really skewed because look at the range here that we're dealing with. It's a per record range of anywhere from a penny up to literally over $1 million one company had for one record. So that skews the average. So the average came out to $5,200 per record that was caught up in a typical data breach event by a small organization. What I think is closer to reality, to be honest with you, is the median, and that's why I reported there the median at $43 per record. So let's talk about crisis services. Whenever you have a data breach event, one of the first things you must do is engage your incident response team. Sometimes that's internal people. Sometimes that's external experts that you may have on call, forensics, a breach coach lawyer, etc. For those costs, there's a cost to that to notify the victims, just figure out forensically who, what, when, where, and how, to stop the bleeding. The cost of that alone, that step for 2017 was $460,000 almost per event. Again, that's not even, no one's even knocking on your door now looking for extra damages. There's no attorney general or plaintiff lawyer knocking on your door yet. That's just your duty to kind of do those initial steps in the first few days following the event. That's significant to a lot of organizations. If there are legal costs, for example, the cost to defend your county, if there happens to be an attorney general coming after, your organization, those costs obviously ramp up from there. You could see $514,000 once a regulator was involved in defending the organization. So those all add up. Again, we're just talking about a simple everyday data breach event right now. So I mentioned phishing and business email compromise is the BEC term there. They were a significant part of the claims we saw. The average phishing event cost an organization $106,000. If there was an actual ransomware event attached to this thing, our researchers looked at a 5-year span of what the ransomware events look, 5 years of claims. If an insurer was involved, interesting enough, and you have an insurance, they were involved in governing this thing, it was $92,000 to resolve a ransomware event. If the client did not have insurance yet and they got caught up in a ransomware event, the ransom was more than double of what the insurers ended up paying, $211,000. We believe the reason for that is a lot of our insurance partners have preferred rates in place with some of the best experts out there. The top lawyers, the top forensic experts, and credit monitoring firms really preferred lower rates, so they're able to control the cost of these claims when they happen, as opposed to someone just buying these services under a panic situation following a data breach crisis event. By the way, we do have a nice section inside the eRisk Hub, Dan, and I'll point that out more, the ACCG eRisk Hub, where it's focused on anti-phishing, and that's the fish fight graphic we looked at here. So the next slide I'm showing you folks is breachless claims. There was no actual breach of the victim's network or the policyholder's network or county's. It was a breachless. An example of that would be we see a significant number of wire transfers, banking fraud, ACH fraud. And how that's often happening is the bad guy is phishing the CEO or the CFO or some higher level organizational person and telling accounts payable people, why didn't we pay this invoice? So it's coming to the controller or the accounts payable person. It looks like it's coming from the senior manager in an email saying, why didn't you pay this invoice or something like that? Please make this wire payment now. And they literally just send it out, no questions asked. No one picks up the phone to actually verify. That's one of the key weaknesses out there now. We're relying a lot on electronic communication, email, text, things like that, instead of picking up the phone and saying, you know, Tim, did you actually want this money sent today, kind of a thing. So the average stolen amount now for 2017 was $227,000. And if we looked at a 5-year average, it was really, they're really similar. So I wanted to just give you a glimpse of causes of loss. What's causing some of these data breach events at the county level and other public entity sectors and small businesses is, hacker losses. You know, that's out there. I talked about the ransomware events where they're requiring you to pay Bitcoin, to them to get a decryption key back. There is malware, viruses, and there's lost and stolen laptops. I could tell you this. Lost laptops about 2-3 years ago was like leading the pack as a cause of loss involved in an insurance claim situation. So, but look at all the causes of the loss on the right-hand side and what's represented here. It's a full spectrum of things that can trip you up. And again, it's not always bad guy doing this. Sometimes it's innocent staff mistake. Oh my gosh, we just sent out all of these private records accidentally. That happens. What services were caught up in the breach? It seemed to me like the Noah's Ark of everybody was caught up in some kind of a breach when we were looking at the numbers coming in, led by professional services, healthcare, financial services, and retail. No surprises there because they have a treasure trove of private data on people. But then beyond that is a lot of other sectors, even manufacturers, hospitality, public entities were represented here. Now, this isn't representative of what's happening in the whole U.S. This is just a small part of what the insurance industry is seeing. So if we looked at the revenue side, the size of your organization by income, revenue, that kind of a thing, if we added up this pie chart, over 90% of these entities really fell into the nano, micro, small size organizations. So this claim study was representative of Main Street as opposed to Wall Street, just to be clear on that. So I want to end, I have a few slides more. I'm going to go into the eRisk Hub for ACCG and just make sure you understand this is a resource available to you. But some basic preparedness tips for counties would be, start with a cyber risk assessment just to get really self-reflect on what reasonable practices do we have in place to safeguard the private information in our systems. This is not something, by the way, that you need to hire an outside person to do. It's perfectly reasonable to have your inside IT folks go through a self-assessment, just for them you as a manager in the insurance world, just to have a layperson's understanding is, do we have, reasonable safeguard controls in place to protect our information assets? That's really the goal. You want to have also a data breach incident response plan. That's just a plan. It's external or in addition to a disaster recovery plan that's really physical world focused. This is basically expect that we're going to have a data breach someday. What's our granular steps to help us recover from that? By the way, we have free examples of both these things for you inside the eRisk Hub for ACCG. But the data breach plan is becoming more important because when we're seeing these claims come in, we notice that a lot of attorney generals who really enforce security breach situations are asking, first thing out of their mouth to you is, show us that you had a security policy and show us that you had a data breach plan, that you actually had, you thought through this thing ahead of time before something happened. So that's becoming more and more important. It doesn't mean also you need to have all internal experts who you're going to call upon to help yourself with this kind of crazy situation. Most organizations, large and small, rely often on outside experts because this is a very specialized area. Sometimes we call those people tiger team experts. They're basically, legal experts who help you understand what your duties are for the state of Georgia. And you might have people in your systems that reside in other surrounding states. The law of the land that applies is, where do those people live now? If they're in their system, it's really, where do they reside today? If they're in California or Maine today, that's the law of the land that applies to them, unfortunately. So in your typical data breach event, what we often see is many state laws coming into play. Well, that breach coach lawyer helps you guide you through that, all that stuff. They then also, what we see as a best practice, the lawyer engages the computer forensic expert team on your behalf, so now everything's attorney-client cloaked. And that person's role is to come in and just make sure the bad guy's not still in the system, stop the bleeding, then figure out, who, what, when, where, and how. How far did they go? Did they actually touch private information on people? Who are those people? Let's get a list. And then what things could be put in place to correct that hole. On occasion, if the lawyer recommends, based on the facts, you may need to then start to notify the victims of that breach. So there's service providers out there who do that on your behalf. Those people can all be in your breach response plan, basically. The final thing we mentioned at a high level that it puts you really in a defensive position is to just do some basic security training for your staff. Example would be, how not to, be on the lookout for the phishing emails that are coming at a lot of organizations every day. And so there's actually online training for staff these days that is cost effective, sometimes free. We have free training available inside, again, the ACCG eRisk Hub portal, and I'll show you some slides on that. So this is a resource available to your organization. At the end of this, Dan, I'm going to make sure Kim Proza resends a brochure with the access instructions, just as a reminder, and she'll send that as a PDF, and then you can pass that out to this whole group, if that makes sense. But it's a private resource center, 100% focused on helping you with data breach and cyber risk issues. And that's connecting you to the right experts, but also giving you a lot of free things that can help your organization have a better risk posture. Free online self-assessments, free policies and procedures you can download, those kind of things. And that's a couple slides here I want to show you, what those are. We have online news focused on public entities, cyber risk impacting public entities, or just cyber risk in general affecting all kind of organizations. We have blogs and news coming in through RSS feeds, so they're constantly being updated. A couple unique features. We do have a 50-state map that gives you a layperson's friendly view of what the law of the land is for your state or surrounding states. So if there is a breach, you got a little sense of what you need to do, but we would still recommend a lawyer, breach coach lawyer, kind of assist you with that. So a couple quick tools to point out. We have this nifty little risk manager tool section, simple to use widgets for an insurance professional would go in, allow your organization to get an online security assessment that shows a scorecard. It's basically allowing you to self-attest to the quality of your security controls. It's a survey. We have a security policy library. I'll show you some of those in a minute. We have a vendor based down in Texas called Compliance Shield, and they're willing to give your members a free trial to Compliance Shield. What Compliance Shield basically is a library of your own policies. So they house those policies for you in your own private library, and it's really cost-effective service. But there's like a 90-day free trial for you just to check it out. So that's also in there. And then there's a number of research tools. I mentioned the claims. We have 8 years of claims data now, many on public entities and small entities. We have easy-to-use databases that show you what's causing losses against your peers, how much are those data breach events costing folks, and what can you do about it. Those kind of things are in here. There's also a cause of loss tool. So we partnered up with Verizon. Verizon, besides being a phone company, they have a huge computer forensic team. In fact, they do the majority of credit card investigations for Visa, American Express. And they do this annual computer crime study called DBIR. And there's always a copy of that in the eRisk Hub that we supply to you guys. But what I find interesting about their study is they look at like 2,000 security breach investigations every year, and they always trace it back to what's causing all this pain. So they can narrow it down to a top 10 list of here's the key causes. If you can help mitigate these things, chances are you're going to become a better risk. So we have a tool in there to educate you about what those are, and it's super easy to use, and we update that every few years because Verizon gives us new cases to load in. They gave us an initial case of like 5,000 just to start this tool. Again, just meant for our clients' education.
Hey,
we also have a breach cost calculator, very easy to use. You just come in, you put in a number of records that you might be holding in your county systems. You can say it's the credit card records or health records or just general PII type records like Social Security numbers. Answer a couple of these questions in the little blue box in the middle of this page, and it's going to give you a scenario of what you could be looking at for a potential future loss. And it'll break it down into, hey, this might be your forensic investigation costs. This could be your state fines and penalties, etc. All this information, just so you know, comes from our claim studies each year. So we're always updating tools for the benefit of our customers so they can get some future free modeling and estimates done.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can.
I'll let you. Kim is on the line now, so if you want.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, I do apologize. I was having very strange and unexpected technical difficulties, but I have been here and watching.
Hey, Kim, while we got you, I can control the slides for you, but why don't you take a few of these slides now? I'll let you, if you could see the map slide right in front of you.
Certainly, happy to. And just real quick, my name is Kimberly Proza. I am the account manager, and I assist Dan with the hub and anyone with the county reinsurance. So,
and Kim, Ashley had sent me a note saying that everybody, ACCG IRMA members, all have a special code to access the hub. So
yes.
What I can give you that, I'll give it at the end of the presentation, but I'll also send it out to the ACCG members with the recording, when I send out the recording for this. So.
Okay. All right, I can do that. Sounds good. Okay, so I will take it from here and give Mark a break. So one of the other key tools here in the hub that we partnered with Kilpatrick Townsend to develop out is a interactive breach notice law map. And the amazing thing about this is you can select whatever state you're needing, which in your case is going to be obviously Georgia. So, but if you are wanting to look into the other regional laws, you can click through and pull that very granular information regarding that breach notice law. So you can see the law and effective date, and you can dive in, and as you can see to the right, see all of the specifications on that law, and then download that information for your own files. So it's oh, Mark.
And Kim, if I can add to that real quick, the lawyer we use at Kilpatrick is a guy named John Neiditz, wonderful lawyer. He has handled data breaches, privacy breaches for like a dozen years plus. And we wanted to go to him because these laws seem to change for, if you're looking at the 50 states, literally every month, see some legislature is updating their security and privacy laws. So that's why we didn't want to go out and just get free information. We want to pay someone who's doing this for us on a consistent basis. I'll pivot now, Kim, if it's okay, to the next slide.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Right, so the cyberclaim scenario tool is a tool that partners and kind of coincides with the cyberclaim study that we release annually. And this is just the way, because the claim study is so intensive and a wealth of information, to really drill down and find specific claim scenarios that occurred and the information on those claims. And it's as simple as drilling down using the drop-down menus, so country, business sector, revenue size, etc. Show results, and it's going to pull up every claim that is associated with those details. And then to really break it down a little further, you just click the scenario ID, and it's going to pull up a little more information regarding that. Some are going to have more than others. It just really depends on what was submitted in that claim itself. But most importantly, we include that total cost and per record cost just to give you additional insight into what that claim would entail.
And Kim, early on, I mentioned about our claim study. I had a couple slides showing our latest numbers for 2018. That report comes out officially at the end of summer, early fall, and then that data, folks, will get swept into this claim scenario tool for you. So it'll be loaded up with another 1,000 events. So Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. Great. So the cause of loss, this is one of our newer tools, and it's really just a way to find out, where is all of this happening? Why is all of this happening? To the left is the starting point. You select your industry, and it's going to break it down by that cause into a pie chart. And then you can click on each section, and it's going to further break it down, as you can see to the right, on more specifics and information on what went into that. And it's just incredibly insightful, and it just is a great starting point to figure out, what do we need to focus our attention on to ensure this doesn't happen to us or to reduce that loss.
And Dan, you mentioned there might be some IT folks on the phone. So I feel like an insurance risk manager person, their eyes might glaze over on that pie chart on the right at that point. But this is of interest for the IT professionals, especially who use the ACCG eRisk Hub. We try to put information in there for insurance folks, the legal counsel, as well as the IT folks. So.
And this is pretty straightforward. These are just some sample policies. There's a lot of ducks to get in a row in regards to preparedness, and this is just somewhere, make sure that you've got all of the policies, make sure that everything is being covered, and just give you a good starting point for that, and ensure that the language is as it should be, et cetera. And so you have a long list there, and you can click through each one and view that and go from there.
Yeah, and to add, folks, so most of these are written by top lawyers in the security and privacy world that we know, and they gave us these templates for you guys to benefit your organizations. Download them, use them for your organization. You can customize it, etc. Many of these we find organizations of all sizes are missing. You know, you may have a basic security plan of some sort. Well, best practice these days is you may need different policies that are more granular than a high-level plain old security policy. And what you're looking at now, the screen, we have a lot more policies in the eRisk Hub for you. We just wanted to give you a sample for this presentation. Okay, go on here.
Okay, so we actually have a specific eRisk assessment for counties to use. And what this is, it's basically just kind of a checklist, kind of just to gauge how are you doing, what needs work. And all you do is you fill out the information, and it's just going to give you, you know, questions to tick off and figure out, and this, it'll summarize, you know, what areas are weak, what areas are okay, and it's just a quick and easy spot reference. As you can see, percentages and red means maybe you need to focus more of your resources there. Green, you know, you're good to go. And so this is just a great way just to check in and make sure you are covering all your bases.
Yep. And this, folks, this mirrors the outline of this self-assessment mirrors an international security standard called ISO 27002, which covers these different categories you're seeing in the kind of in the middle of the page there section: security policy, security organization, etc. As Kim said, you go through and you self-attest to what you're doing for each of these practice areas. The point of this is really just to allow you to do a self-review. You could print this out, or you could just delete it and throw it in the trash. Completely up to you. We don't do anything with this, and we don't go into any assessment already completed in the eRisk Hub system. We just kind of put it out there as a free educational tool. Okay, Kim, this is, I believe, our last slide before we take questions.
Okay, great. And it's a great one to end on. So CRL did something fantastic. They brought in someone from SkillBridge to do a session with their members and really go through more county-specific, public entity-specific scenarios and 101 training on cybersecurity education. And this is really the key here is so many issues that occur in regards to breaches are internal. And this is to ensure that those working in those public entities are doing what they need to do and following what they need to do to, you know, not mess up and cause something that can really get out of control. So they partnered with SkillBridge, one of our vendors, and just did a great presentation. It was several days. I believe it was 2 days that they went through and did a presentation, and you can have access to and watch each and every module in the hub itself. So it's just a fantastic resource and really geared specifically to you.
So, you folks, hopefully you have a few minutes to go in and take the eRisk Hub for a spin. As Dan mentioned, we will, you know, he'll be sending out the ACCG eRisk Hub brochure that gives you the access instructions, including the unique code that you need to get in. And be happy to, you know, hear from you once you've done that to see if you had any feedback, any comments, any suggestions on how we can improve. We're always looking to improve. We have, on a rolling basis, about 53,000 companies and organizations using our eRisk Hub platform all the time. And that's across, again, 80 major insurance companies who insure those organizations. So we try to have something for everybody. Kim mentioned in this case, we were fortunate enough to partner on a training side with some vendors who did some things specifically for public entities and counties. And so if there's anything you go in and you see is missing or you'd love to learn more about, please let Dan know, who can let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, Dan, we'll pause and see if there's any questions.
So any questions out there? First of all, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. I'm sure that the audience is applauding right now, standing on the edge of their seats. Grateful appreciation. Anybody have any comments or questions? Let me see if I can touch base with anybody. Tracy, are you out there? Tracy Williamson.
Hello, I'm here.
You got any questions? Any thoughts?
No, this is all very interesting, though. I can't wait to get access to the hub.
Well, I'm going to give you guys the code. You guys are all ACCG members. So the code is, everybody get their pen and pencils out if you can, and a piece of paper. 13625-1, and I'm going to send this out with everybody that registered. I'm going to send them that code for access, but in the interim, if you need that, you can try and see, and they can get the eRisk hub off the ACCG website. So you go to accginsurance.com, or I guess acccinsurance.org, and you can get access to the eRisk hub off that particular website. So you go to accginsurance.org and you'll be able to get that.
Could you repeat the code again, please?
It's 13625-1. 13625-1. And again, I'll send that out in the email with all the things we've talked about.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So let's see, anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you so very much, Mark and Kim. I really appreciate it. Kim, where are you calling in from today?
Well, I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. What is I'm sure it's nice and cool in Dallas, Texas today, right?
Well, I guess compared to, Venus, it's pretty.
It is all it's all comparable. That is so true. Dallas, I've heard, is warm this time of year.
Yeah, it's a little toasty.
Very good. Well, I'll let you guys go. Thank you so very, very much. I really appreciate your time and professionalism. And I'm sure if you have questions, anybody can just send those to me, and I will forward those to you. So I'm going to end the presentation at this point in time. Thank you guys so very much, and we will talk later.
Thank you, Dan. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.